Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening. Today we continue our best practice webinar series with the topic, Unpacking the Power Behind Huddle Spaces. I'm your host, Joe Wachna, and I'd like you to welcome our moderator today from Cisco, Kim Wen. Kim is the Senior Marketing Manager for Cisco Collaboration Technology Group, focusing on Webex meetings and Webex devices. She has been in the collaboration industry for nearly a decade and is passionate about educating people on how the right technologies can improve productivity at work, but can also change people's lives for the better beyond the office. And our featured guest today is Mr. Alan McGinty. Alan is the Senior Director of the Global Workplace Innovation Group here at Cisco. His mandate is to design and deliver the next generation workplace, integrating the physical workspace with advanced technologies and thought-leading policies to support a highly evolved global workforce. Alan also focuses on driving concepts that will increase Cisco's ability to attract and retain talent in a rapidly changing world. And of course, you can actually follow Alan on Twitter at ALMCGINT. Now, before we begin, just a few housekeeping items to take care of. All lines are in listen-only mode. There's one main chat panel in your screen. You can use that for issues, general comments, things like that. There's also a Q&A panel. Please use that for the questions if you have during the presentation, and we're going to try to address them at the end of the webcast. I think Kim and Alan will try to answer as many as they can. We're also going to be serving up a few poll questions during the webcast, so look for those to pop up in the, I believe, lower right corner of your screen. Your participation and encouragement is appreciated. This webcast is being recorded, and a replay and slide deck will be made available in the coming days. Now, without further ado, here is Kim with Unpacking the Power Behind Huddle Spaces.
Well, hello, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. You'll notice that I have some candles going on. It's not to create mood for Valentine's Day, but if you're in Northern California, you know we're having terrible weather, and I've lost power today, but we're going to make this work. So today is actually a cute day. Valentine's Day is a cute day to talk about huddling. And huddling is a very relevant topic, not just for today, but for also the time that we work in, because it's a big part of helping us be more agile, especially in today's open space work environment. And being more agile is key to success today, according to business leaders. In a recent Deloitte survey, they found that while virtually all leaders said that agility and collaboration were critical to success, only 6% of leaders said they were actually agile. But here's the good news, because it turns out that being able to effectively huddle with your small teams contributes to the new agile work style. But that also means you have to have the right collaboration technologies in your huddle space. So recently, we did a survey, and we learned that 70% of users are not happy with the collaboration technology in their huddle space, and nearly half of them said that they had no access to basic audio and video. So we're going to replicate a mini version of that survey with you here today. You'll start to see that pop up in your chat window. And we're curious to know how your responses will compare to the larger population that we surveyed. But let's get to our guest speaker, Alan McGinty, Cisco's Senior Director of Global Workplace Innovation Group. And he's going to share with us how huddle spaces can be the power behind making companies more agile. And it's also an effective tool for attracting and retaining talent. So, Alan, you told me that huddle spaces are the #1 requested meeting space in corporate real estate today. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's correct, Kim, and thank you for having me join the webinar today. I'm happy to be here, calling in from sunny North Carolina. I know a lot of people are experiencing bad weather across the country, so you know our thoughts go out to you as you deal with those difficult weather events. So yes, Kim, huddle rooms, huddle spaces are becoming the highest demand type of space that we see across our global portfolio, certainly, and all the research in the industry indicates that as well. So at Cisco, we believe that the real work, the real true innovation happens in small teams of people that can really, unleash productivity and without a lot of guardrails and restrictions in how they do that work. So we have a strong belief in the power of teams, and whatever we can do to enable those teams to be successful is critically important. So A huddle space, a huddle room is critically important that teams can rapidly come together and not be impeded. If they need to come together, they can find a space. They can come together, make decisions, collaborate, whiteboard, or whatever activities they need to do at that point in time. So our workplace environment is evolving to really drive the power of teams. So let's talk about kind of where we are today when we think about the workplace. First, there are really 4 large global trends that we're seeing, and they're really kind of in the center of every conversation I have with clients and leaders every day. First we have a rapidly changing workforce demographic model. In many parts of the world, we're going through the largest shift of a workforce in the past 70 years. Aging workers, the baby boomers are rapidly leaving at an increasing pace. New generations of workers, the millennials, ready to fill those openings. When you think about it, we need to really support kind of 4 generations in the workplace. We've got baby boomers are trailing off, but we've got Gen Xers, we've got generation millennials, we've got digital natives that are starting to come in to the workforce now. So later this year, next year, there are about 61 million Gen Z digital natives that are going to start entering the workforce. These are the people who have had a digital device in their hands since they were born, 1996 or later. So their needs in terms of technology are much higher. Their expectations are much higher, and we need to make sure that we deliver a technology-enabled workplace that supports the way they can work most effectively. Second, there's a huge demand for flexibility. Technology has really redefined the way we work. Work is what we do. It's not where we go. We've got a lot of flexibility. The employment market is demanding more flexibility in how they blend their work and their family lives together and where they can work, when they can work, and it starts to become more of a work on any content, anywhere at any time type of model. The workplace still remains critically important to bring those teams together and bring people together. When we look at our research and try to understand what makes people want to come into the office, they're all people related. They want to meet with their coworkers. They want to engage and collaborate. They want to, engage in the culture of the company, and they want to be seen. So these are all people drivers. People don't come into the office because there's free food or it's the most amazing workplace you've ever seen. They come in to engage with people, and that's what this technology is all about. Third, we've got, changing work activities. If you think back to the work you did even, 5 or 10 years ago, it was very process-oriented, moving paper around, processing data, doing reports. Today, most of that work's been automated, outsourced or streamlined. So the work left over involves innovating and fixing problems. That's the collaborative work that we're trying to support here. And, the question I would ask you is whether your work environments are suited to really support all this collaboration that's going to unleash the power of teams. And lastly, technology will continue to accelerate and advance. And as we all become technology companies, we have to understand this. Companies build technology on a 24 to 36 month useful life cycle, right? Our partners in HR and real estate, tend to think longer term when we put a solution in place. We want that to last, 5 to 10 years of delivering a useful life. But that cycle is shortening very rapidly. So we need to be able to respond very quickly and in a much more agile and flexible way. So if we look at, where we've come from, the traditional workforce now, at Cisco, we've been at this for about 5 or 6 years now in the process of transforming our global work environment. But when we look back to where we were and where a lot of companies still exist today, you look at the traditional cube farm. I call them veal pens. They're boxes. We want to put creative, intelligent people into boxes and then tell them to innovate and think outside of the box. That equation, just does not compute, at least in my mind anyway. So the old model was, rows and rows of cubicles with, conference rooms sprinkled around that you see in green here, and then private offices where managers and directors would sit. The new workplace is really, an evolution from simply, one-size-fits-all cube farm to more of an activity-based work environment that provides, a wide variety of different space types for people so that they have the right type of space to support the type of work that they want to do at any point during the day. So it can be open workstations, it can be conference room, bookable conference rooms of various sizes, it can be e-cafes, it can be training rooms, it can be quiet rooms, and this is where huddle spaces come in. Huddle spaces are a critical space type that people are consistently looking for, because when you think about the typical, open work environment, the complaints that we always hear is about the lack of visual and audio privacy. So people need to be able to rapidly find a place where they can get that privacy, they can get that auditory privacy to be able to work unimpeded. Or they can find a space in an open workstation and do some heads down work, where they can go to the e-cafe or some spontaneous collaboration areas to meet up with their coworkers. So we have been, really transforming the amount of, in the past, there was much more individualized space. Today, there's much more collaborative space. So, let's try to understand the variety of work that we're trying to support here. And we look at it, it really, breaks down into four main work categories, concentrating, collaborating, learning, and socializing. So we need to ensure that people can effectively collaborate. That's critically important. We need to make that happen. We also need to make sure that we've got space for people to socialize, people to learn, to handle more formal meetings, and so on. So we need all of these different space types to really drive an effective activity-based work environment. So when we think about collaboration, it isn't a single activity. Our employees use our collaboration spaces looking for different outcomes. Many times it's as simple as getting together to share information or a weekly status meeting with their teammates, but more often it's about making decisions or creating or innovating, brainstorming. What's interesting about these individual activities is they have different level of collaboration intensity. So, where there's individual participation, and it's more people-centric or more content-centric. So that you can see as you go from simple information sharing up to brainstorming, the level of intensity becomes higher in team building. The level of intensity is much higher. So when we look at, how small spaces are critical, have to be a critical part of your solution, because when we looked at how people worked, we realized that people are working, as I said, in smaller groups. So the typical meeting size in Cisco, a global company, is about 3.7 people, with 2 people being remote. So that's really an interesting statistic when you think about it. We are seeing smaller and smaller groups with larger and larger challenges in front of them, and it's all back to speed, right? It's how fast can we innovate, and if we have the least amount of people possible required for a task, we're going to get the most speed. So we need to, again, provide those spaces that people need. And when you think about huddle rooms, it's not simply a room. These spaces come in all shapes and sizes. They can be in traditional settings. They can be in more, residential types of settings. They can be in open areas. They can, in fact, be outdoors. One of the things that we're looking to accelerate in some of our more temperate campus locations is putting a variety of, huddle spaces in outdoor meeting spaces. Like I said, sometimes they're not even rooms. As you can see by these photographs here, these are meeting spaces that people can grab very quickly. They may be out in the open, but provide, a little bit of comfort and a small amount of privacy and segregation from the larger crowd. But these are the types of spaces that we're seeing more and more demand for that we've really been leveraging globally. Another thing I'll point out here is the central staircase concept. In the past, most of the time the stairwells are at ends of the buildings, by the fire exits. Now they're moving toward the center because we're finding that the interaction that occurs between floors and groups is just another method of driving engagement between teams and individuals.
Alan, I believe you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. When you think about huddle spaces, we need to talk about the collaboration that happens in those spaces and the types of technologies we need to enable that. And when you think about a huddle space, don't think about a dedicated room where there are people sitting in a room meeting with each other. One of the key factors that our technology really drives is global engagement. So we need to have the ability to connect with the people in the room. We need to be able to connect with other people through the technology. We need to be able to share documents, share content. We need to be able to hear these people. We need to hear what they're saying, what they're speaking. Preferably, we'd like to see them because, video engagement is a much higher level of engagement, a much richer experience rather than just, communicating through voice. And we also need the ability to collaborate and whiteboard and really work together as a team to work toward the ends that we're trying to achieve. So when I think about, I'm not going to try to sell Cisco technology here on this, but what I will mention is that, in the past, collaboration technology, video technology has been very, expensive, required a lot of work, required a lot of room remediation to get the right acoustics and all of that stuff. But Cisco has come out with very low-cost solutions that, can enable, any room very quickly. And you think about the Webex Share device. This is simply, on the left, a dongle that you plug into an HDMI port on any, LCD TV that you can pick up at Best Buy, mount it on the wall, connect a network cable to it, or connect via wireless to the internet. Now you've got, a cloud-enabled video device that you can engage with teams around the world on any type of video kind of application. You've got the Webex Room Kit Mini and various sized room kits, which have, very high efficiency targeting microphone arrays, video camera technology, and some have the speaker track technology, but the video camera will automatically size the speaker in the room for the optimal video image. These devices also provide analytics and have room count capabilities that we can track to understand how our rooms are utilized, at what rate, at what capacity. Again, these can be connected to any kind of LCD monitor and very simply turn that into a high-definition video device. And then we've got the Webex boards of various sizes, smaller to larger, which are complete collaboration endpoints that allow you to connect with teams anywhere, video, chat, voice call, whiteboarding, connecting with the internet. It's just a fully functional cloud-based application that's very low cost. So we're seeing a shift in the market, and we're needing to respond to it because if we look at, the research that's coming out in terms of, an addressable market or demand for this in the market, the global market has an addressable, need in huddle spaces between 30 and 50 million rooms or spaces. And this comes from Wainhouse Research, which does a lot of tech research on markets and what's happening out there. So we're seeing this increase. We expect it to continue to increase. And we're on top of it, and we want to help others to be on top of it as well. So we talked about video. Video is becoming increasingly important as we move along. It's just like I said, a much richer experience. You have the ability to share, globally with people, with your face, your video content, any type of collateral that you're sharing or you're working on together on the Webex board. Again, you can do the collaborative whiteboarding. So it becomes a much higher functioning team engagement. The other thing that we're very serious about and we understand is that to really enable this technology at the highest level, it really needs to be completely intuitive. It needs to be a simple, consistent experience. When you see this technology, it all needs to look the same. You need to just kind of push one button and be able to understand that you're online and you've got a consistent user experience across all platforms. So that's what we're really trying to drive, and that along with intelligent proximity, where you can walk into a room and the device immediately recognizes you. One button, one touch, and you're online. So we're really driving toward that user experience and continuing to improve that and make it more consistent across platforms. The other things that we're seeing is that devices are starting to become intelligent sensors. As I said before, the ability to track occupancy, and then it's a simple face counting technology, so it's not facial recognition where you need to be concerned about privacy issues or anything like that. It's simply recognition of a human head in the room, and it's counting that person in that room for as long as they're in there. So it's taking snapshots over time so that we can then provide analytics to the business, to our IT organization, to our real estate organization, in how the rooms are actually used. We may find, for instance, that we have in one space we have 6 huddle rooms, and they are 95% utilized during normal working hours. That would tell us we need more huddle spaces. We don't have enough. So if we saw some that were 30% utilized, that would be a different story. But what it does is it gives us the analytics to help us inform our future design solutions. So as I said, our design solutions are evolving to include more and more and more huddle spaces and collaboration areas. It's starting to evolve to include less and less, medium-sized conference rooms that we would typically build in the past as a normal course of business. We still have a need for very large meeting spaces where teams come together for all-hands meetings or very large organizational meetings. But the need for those 20-person conference rooms is really shrinking and continuing to shrink. So these kind of analytics can help us understand how our rooms are used. This is what I was talking about. So we can look at these rooms, we can look at the utilization, we can determine peak occupancy, we can look at how the technology is being used, and we can, this will tell us, when we need to refresh technology. Where are we lacking technology? Where do we have too much technology? Do we have enough of these spaces? Should we build more? Do we require less? Do we need a little bit bigger huddle spaces? This kind of data will clearly come out of the analytics that we can provide now. And really, the space design sets the tone. So, as I said, we need to make spaces that are intuitive. People need to walk into a space and immediately recognize what that space is for and how they should use it, how they should modify their workplace etiquette. For instance, if you're in an open work environment, you will moderate the tone of your voice. When you're on a phone call, you won't speak as loudly, and you kind of have that, courtesy of etiquette. The design of the workplace can be a real enabler there too, to create different spaces for different needs. So if we have, for instance, software coders, they have a lot of heads down, high intensity work. They need quiet spaces. We can design quiet areas or library zones. We can put acoustic, elements in the space to help with that. Also, the way you orient furniture, the type of posture, surfaces, the finishes, and the density of those types of applications can really drive certain behaviors. For instance, you could have, one of your huddle rooms could be a stand-up meeting room where there are no chairs, just a high table. People quickly come in there, get their work done, and leave. Because what you don't want people to do is camp out in huddle rooms, because those are really meant to be spontaneous use rooms for the entire population and not meant to be a place for somebody to camp out all day. So, one of the things that we do is we provide, glass on a lot of these rooms within buildings. So it's pretty evident what's going on in there, whether it's a meeting, there's a lot of activity, or whether it's maybe just one person sitting there doing their email. So it's important to kind of enforce how the space is used with a light touch. We don't want to be the space police, but we want to continually, message through change management and help people understand how the spaces are to be used. Location, 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 like all real estate. It's really important that when we build out spaces, we don't build kind of a one-size-fits-all model. It's more of a one-size-fits-one that's based on the specific needs of the work groups that are to be located in that space, based on the business intelligence of how they work, what their unique requirements might be, what types of work styles do their staffers exhibit. And when working with them, we can understand better the type of solution we need to recommend to install for them. So if you look at this, you can see the huddle spaces are all easily accessible. You kind of have the open workstations around the perimeter, letting the maximum amount of natural daylight in, while also providing lots of huddle spaces within close proximity of all the teams. Again, like I said, we use glass walls wherever possible, and try to prevent people from squatting in there in the room. And we also kind of, when we do new programs, new work environments for teams, we establish a neighborhood association within that team so that they kind of, have the ability to manage their own neighborhoods and, communicate with the teams there and identify issues or have suggestions for improvements. And that gives them a little bit more ownership in the space, makes them feel better about it, and makes them feel more engaged. Another example of different types of furniture layouts that can, support different types of behaviors and activities. So we tend to provide a large, level of different types of spaces, from simple, a couple of easy chairs and a sofa, to a stand meeting desk, to a video endpoint at the end of the room here, or a Webex board for brainstorming and agile team developments. So these are the things that you should think about. The other thing that we're recognizing now is this, and you may see this, that in kind of the meeting room environment, bookable conference rooms that are highly utilized, you'll see groups of people show up at the top of the hour, kind of waiting outside, or 5 minutes before the top of the hour, waiting outside to get into the meeting room because someone else is using it, or the people in the room may run over a bit. And we think that providing kind of an anti-space, an anti-area for before and after collaboration is something that we're starting to look at because, you know, you have people standing in the hallway holding their laptops. It's kind of an awkward position, at least if they had somewhere to kind of, you know, sit down for a minute, they could actually start talking and collaborating and doing whatever they came there for before they actually entered the room. So these are kind of the thoughts that are driving what we're doing, you know, and kind of, you know, the summary here is that, yeah, we all really need to recognize that the workplace is changing dramatically, being driven by a rapidly evolving global workforce that is more and more technology enabled, and we need to provide the technology that is really expected to really unleash the talent of the new teams that are coming on board. So we believe that huddle spaces are really a key factor here in driving, you know, the power of teams. You know, collaboration is not a single activity. You know, these rooms can be used for any number of activities. The benefit is the spontaneous use. If you have them in the right ratio in the neighborhoods, there should always be a room that somebody can find that a team can quickly grab when they need it. And the user experience of the technology is critically important to enable, you know, successful adoption. So a lot of times, you know, companies will put technology in and expect people to know how to use it. Some of it's more complex than others. All that does is set up a never-ending stream of help desk calls. How do you turn this thing on? Is there a battery in the remote? What function do I need to hit? What function key do I need to hit to share? All of those questions should never be asked. You should walk into a room, see a device, and immediately know all I have to do is push this one button and I'm on. So we're looking for that user experience that, again, we don't want to impede any innovation that's happening with mundane tasks like trying to figure out how to operate a piece of technology. So keeping space design and technology integration in an evolutionary state. So we have our workplace design solution that we deploy globally throughout Cisco. We have a technology integration set that continually evolves with new products and technologies. So we really serve as a living laboratory. We're lucky that we're the living laboratory that gets to use Cisco technology in our rooms and buildings to really unleash the power of the teams within our business. So that is what I have for you today.
Great. Thanks, Alan. That was very interesting. Very helpful, I'm sure, to our attendees. But so before we go to Q&A, I thought it might be interesting to look at the results of our poll. So the first question is, are there different huddle spaces in your organizations that meet your needs? And as we suspected, as our own survey suggests, the answer is no, we could use more. 56% of you said no. 22% said yes. So very interesting there. So this is right in line with our data. So Joe, could I have the next one, please? And the next one is, which collaboration technologies are currently used in your organization? And with that, my power just came on. So it looks like 82% said, most of you said a monitor is being used, followed by telephone at 76%, videos is 67%, and digital whiteboard is 55%. So that's actually more than our own results. And then the final one, Joe. Thank you. Which of the following technologies is important for you to have in your huddle space? Audio and video came out top at 89, both 89%. Digital whiteboard at 71%, and wireless sharing at 82%. Again, very consistent with our own research. So I'm glad that that we were able to get that data aligned and show that the strategy is going in the right direction for us. So with that, let's now move on to Q&A. So Alan, I'll just pepper you with what's in the Q&A panel.
Sure.
So we have, thank you for this amazing platform. You're welcome. Thanks for participating. How would a suitable room be for musicians? A drum set presentation requires good acoustic and sound quality and mics.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. So this is how, what room would be suitable for musicians? What kind of huddle space would be suitable for musicians? A drum set presentation requires good acoustics and sound quality. A little off topic.
Well, that is a very, very interesting question because I happen to be a musician and a record producer on the side. So very familiar with acoustic treatments of live rooms and dead rooms. So for that, we would need to do some acoustic treatment in a room to be able to enable that for kind of broadcast over video to make it not, as someone said, the tin can effect. I guess that would apply. So you typically have a lot of glass in these rooms and hard wall surfaces. But if there was an application where people wanted to, play music and do that, via different locations around the world, like maybe you have the drummer in San Jose and a guitar player in Hong Kong and a sax player in London, and coming together to be able to do that. That's something that I've always wanted to do here at Cisco. So whoever asked that question, ping me and we can take this offline and see what I can do to help there.
But the good thing is our video systems have great audio capabilities and mics, so that if you want to do that, we have a great platform for it.
Yeah, they do. They'd have to have a high SPL level to handle live drums in a small room, but we can take that one offline. Whoever that was, please send me an email. Thank you.
So here's another question for you, Alan. Do you have any data that talks about productivity of the different room styles?
We have self-reported productivity. So we do what we call and if anyone from Cisco is on this call, you may have participated in, called our work profile survey, where we survey our global population to understand how they work, what do they need in terms of spaces, what do they need in terms of services, what do they need in terms of technology, all of these things and how they work. And what we've seen, I will not, specify a huddle room, but it's part of an overall design solution that we've seen, significant increases in workplace productivity, self-reported, and satisfaction by 17%. We've seen other numbers related to new hires, 66 to 72% of new hires with 1 year or less tell us that the Cisco workplace environment played into their decision, made an impact on their decision to join Cisco. And we've also seen increases in hiring based on new employees recommending, friends and colleagues for roles within Cisco. We've seen an increase in that as well. So those numbers are all important.
Here's another one for you, Alan. What is the right balance of huddle spaces to employees?
It's hard to say because every different group works completely differently. So there may be some groups, like I'll give you, an example, like global virtual sales, right? This just a high energy environment where everybody's out there working. They're banging on the phones all day long, high energy. Don't really have, a big need for huddle spaces because it's like we're all in this together. It's almost like a boiler room kind of, Wall Street operation. There are other groups that need more and more, like if you think about finance or HR or those types of groups that have a higher level of confidentiality or legal, they'll have a much higher need for it. So, but if I look at it on average, I would say that, we're providing probably two to 2.5 huddle rooms per 10 employees. at this point.
Okay, great.
But it changes.
Great. You touched on the tin can effect question, but so when does someone presenting for a webinar and uses one of the tin can huddle spaces, the audio quality is compromised for the audience in the recording? How do you fix that?
Well, you can look at different spaces to do that. I would think that if you're an individual doing a webinar or something like that, if you're on a headset, that's going to eliminate a lot of that problem. Or you could go into a quiet room, which are one of the much smaller rooms that are, have higher levels of acoustic treatment that would completely eliminate that tin can effect. Or look for rooms that have, less glass, which is a big reflective surface that causes that effect. If there are areas that have, really bad problems, we should be aware of those so that we can come and look at them and see if we need to take any remediation activities to correct a problem where it may be a big problem. But as you can see, I'm in a room with a lot of glass right now, and I don't think I have that tin can effect, but I have a headset on. So there are different ways around it.
Okay. Maybe this final question to round it out, unless anybody has anything else. So what are the top 3 things that I should consider if I were building a bunch of huddle spaces?
What you should consider first and always foremost is focus on the people and the teams that are going into the space. We need to make sure that we're truly meeting the needs of what will enable them to do their best work possible. And as I said, every group is different. So, I cannot emphasize change management enough as early in the process as possible. So you may meet with a group that you'll find they want, completely residential, low pressure rooms, and they just want a couple of chairs and a sofa or bean bags, and that's the way they prefer to work. You may have another group that prefers, very, rigid business-like, a table with 4 chairs or whatever, and a video endpoint. It's really based on focus on the needs of the user, and that will take you where you need to go. In terms of the room, I think you want to focus on, like I said, the user experience. So you want to make it as intuitive as possible, as consistent as possible. So when people walk from room to room to room, that user experience is the same, and it's not, or completely different. So, consistency. The other thing that I didn't really mention, but is really, really important, is wireless. High-speed, ubiquitous wireless coverage that really untethers people and allows them to freely move about spaces, not being tied down. And it's surprising when you get out in the market and you talk with different companies. I meet with hundreds of companies every year, and so many of them don't have wireless yet, or very limited wireless capabilities. So this is really, wireless is a key enabler that can really, really, impact productivity in a big way.
Well,
so consistent user experience, focus on the end users, and wireless.
So with that, I think we have addressed all of the questions in the Q&A panel. And so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. With that, I will hand it over to Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Kim. So on behalf of Tim and Alan and the greater Cisco team, we want to thank you for your attendance and participation today.